Israel is considering a proposed ceasefire with Lebanon that will keep Hezbollah fighters away from the border. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is hosting senior White House mediators today as part of talks on a pause. If the plan was agreed, it would lead to a 60-day suspension in the conflict to ensure that Hezbollah doesn't receive any new arms from Iran and moves north of Lebanon's Litani River. This is according to Israeli officials. However, Hezbollah's new leader, Naim Qassem, says the group would only accept a deal that meets Lebanon and the militant group's demands. For more, Dana Khraiche, UAE Bureau Chief, joins us. So, Dana, what would this ceasefire plan include?
Yes, good morning. The ceasefire is a 60-day cessation of hostilities in which the international community, including the U.S. and others, would monitor the implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 1701. And that resolution sees the withdrawal of course, Israeli troops from southern Lebanon, but also moving Hezbollah fighters away from the border up to the Litani River. And it also sees that the Lebanese army would recruit more soldiers, deploy them along the border with Israel, along with UNIFIL, which is the UN peacekeepers who've been there for decades in Lebanon. Now, this seems to be the proposal that the U.S. is pushing for, and they don't really have much time since elections are going to be next week. And they're trying to, in a last-minute ditch, of course, get a ceasefire agreement to end the conflict in Lebanon, which could potentially have a positive impact on the conflict and the war in Gaza, too.
So we've also got Hamas saying it's open to a truce plan in Gaza. Do we know details of that?
We don't, but media reports have said that the proposal on the table is not a long-term ceasefire, but a short one that could potentially lead to a longer one. And we saw yesterday Israel's defense minister saying to troops that we need to keep the pressure up on Hamas in Gaza in order to ensure certain conditions that would help us return the hostages still held in Gaza over a year now. The last ceasefire in Gaza was about over a year ago, and that was very short-lived. It was about 2 weeks, and then hostilities continued in Gaza and elsewhere. And we see Hamas still fighting Israeli soldiers, especially in northern Gaza in several areas there. And so what Israel wants to do primarily is, one, end Hamas's reign over Gaza and return the hostages. And it seems that these talks are still ongoing. We saw the U.S. officials in Qatar. They were discussing the ceasefire, of course, with the mediators, including Qatar and Egypt. And we also now are seeing U.S. officials coming back for the region, including to Israel this week to also discuss the Lebanese ceasefire. So there is effort on both sides, right, on the Lebanon side, on the Gaza side, to get to an agreement before the U.S. elections.
Yeah, Dana, just quickly on that point, how realistic is that timeline? It seems pretty crunched.
It is pretty crunched, and we're not sure how either Hamas or Lebanon would react to certain conditions in the ceasefire proposal. So what Israel wants is that it wants some kind of a freedom of military action in Lebanon so it can strike Hezbollah infrastructure whenever it wants. And that might become a very sticky point for Lebanese officials and Hezbollah itself, because that it would mean violating the sovereignty. And that's something that Lebanese officials have been complaining about for years now, since the 2006 war. And so this might be a sticky point, and also having the Lebanese army striking Hezbollah infrastructure by itself or giving it this mandate to do that can also be difficult, because the Lebanese army has always remained neutral and on the side, fearing any civil unrest between itself and Hezbollah supporters in the country.